Hello, good morning. I'm doing some cleansing and some clearing here before we get started together. This is Horus incense, and Horus is a gatekeeper of the psychic realms. He's really good to ask if you're trying to develop your psychic abilities. Okay. Alright, and I'm gonna use this again. I've got some Palo Santo and some cedar sage as well to help cleanse the space. So if you need clearing, like anything that you're holding on to that's not serving you, like behavioral patterns, negative thoughts, physical ailments, cleansing and clearing is really good to help shake those things off of you. Okay. And I'm going to be using Florida water. So Florida water is a really good protectant spray, and it's good for protecting your chakra system, your etheric body, your auric field. And so if you want to accept this, you can say yes in your mind or out loud or in the chat. And then this is peppermint oil. Peppermint oil is really good for mental clarity or if you're experiencing a lot of congestion. It's also good for resetting your central nervous system if you're experiencing a lot of anxiety. So if you want to accept, you can say yes in your mind or out loud or in the chat. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about today, and I'm doing a TikTok live for everybody that's going to be watching this on YouTube later. And so I'm going to be answering questions as I go along in the chat. And so what I'm going to be talking about today is connecting with your tarot and oracle decks, if that's something that you're interested in. So is there anybody in here that is wanting to start connecting with their deck and have any questions about that? I'm going to be speaking a little bit about my journey and tips and tricks that I've like pulled up along the way. And so let me show everyone the decks that I have, and then I'll talk about them a little bit. So all decks have different energies and different frequencies, different vibrations. We'll get into how they're their own consciousness forms in a little bit, and what the difference between if you're trying to use it for your own energy or use it as a consciousness or work with it as a consciousness form. So the ones that I have my Keepers of the Light deck, and so this has a bunch of ascended masters, teachers, gurus, consciousness forms in there. And what I mean by consciousness forms is, so like here we have Joan of Arc, okay, but then there's also cards in here that are faith. So faith would be a consciousness form, which is a little bit different than a specific like person like Buddha or Jesus. Okay, so that's one. And this is actually one of the first decks that I ever received, and this deck really significantly helped me in connecting with my own spirit guides and other people's spirit guides. And then I have my chakra consciousness deck. And so this is really good because it has to do with the chakra system and reading your own energy or reading other people's energy. I have my Starseed Oracle deck. And so my Starseed Oracle deck, this is for helping people remember where their origin or like their soul spark point is, but it's also really good for empaths and light workers, and those go very much in tandem with one another. So when I'm pulling for people for this, they're usually one of those three things. Okay, hey Ray. How are you doing? I'm excited for a chat later. I'm doing a run on teaching on connecting with your deck. And so this is my shamanism deck. And so when I pull for my shamanism deck for people, this lets me know that you have a lot of earth energy and you have like a lot of ancestral spirit guides, that you draw a lot of your personal power and your energy from the earth. And this has a lot of animals in it as well. And so it gets real in depth into shamanism. I have my tarot deck, and we'll get into the difference between tarot and oracle in a second. But tarot, I read these like oracle cards. I never really got into tarot like real in depth. So I'm going to be from the perspective of this is how you work with oracles. But we'll talk about tarot a little bit. And so with these, when I pull from this, this is very like karmic lessons, karmic cycles, or like talking in reference to people's like behavioral patterns or like trauma that you're trying to heal. Okay. And then this is my unicorn deck. And so my unicorn deck is very high light vibrations. And so this is not only for like unicorn energy, but it's also for like fairy and mermaid and angel, like all of those very high vibrational light beings. Okay. So what is the difference between tarot and oracle cards? So tarot cards, let me pull mine out, have typically the same suite in every single deck. Sometimes there's like extra cards in there, but for the most part, there's, I think it's 64 that are in tarot decks. Are you talking about the unicorn deck? Tarot cards have very specific cards to the suite. So you probably have heard of some, like the Two of Cups, the Wheel of Fortune. We've got the Three of Cups, the Fool card. They're all the same for the most part in tarot decks. And so tarot has very specific messages per each card. So it comes with this little guidebook. Guidebooks are very resourceful. So like the King of Wands, influence, respect, leader, maturity. And so each card generally has a very specific message. That doesn't mean that you always have to stick to that messaging, right? But that's the general theme of that card. So with oracle cards are a little bit different. Let me pull some out. Okay. So like this is the Holy Mountain. So with an oracle card, what you're going to do is you're going to pull messages from the picture and like the impression. So the message that you get from this might be totally different than what is in this guidebook, because it's reading like your energy or somebody else's energy. And so you might get something completely different that's not on that card. Like I had, I was teaching somebody about their deck and I pulled one specific card and she got an animal from it, even though there wasn't an animal. And I was like, that's okay, because that's what you're pulling from that. So Spirit is trying to give you that message via this card, right? Hello. So with oracle cards and tarot decks, I have found a lot of people that are very scared or skeptical into getting into that because they're worried that it's going to start invoking spirits, or they're going to start channeling beings, right? Or you're going to start seeing ghosties everywhere in your house. So that is sometimes true if that's your intention. Like if you're specifically wanting to connect with spirit guides and things of that nature, which can be a little intimidating if you're like right at the beginning of your journey with your deck. Okay. So what I always explain is that you can program your decks. Like you can ask them to do specific things for you. And so if you are not wanting to connect with spirits and you just want to connect with your own energy and your own intuition, that is a beautiful, beautiful tool to work with. And I even hesitant about saying tool, and we'll get into that because it's its own consciousness form. Friend. It's a beautiful friend to work with. Okay, so you can use that to strengthen your own intuition. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so what you can do is you can hold your deck in your hand and ask your deck, I want you to only mirror back to me my own energy. Like, I don't want to hear spirits. I don't want to see spirits. I don't want to do anything like that or channel anything. All I want to do is I literally just want you to mirror back to me what is going on in my own energy. Because sometimes when we're trying to work out things in our brain, like in our mindscape, it is very difficult sometimes because it's like an internal monologue and you're not having like an outsider's perspective, right? That's the reason we go to friends with things, because sometimes you're too deep in the situation to like see another perspective. And so cards like this give you a different perspective because it's an external representation of what is going on internally. And so if you want to start really honing on your intuition and learning how to trust yourself and read your own energy body, because maybe you want to read other people's energy, like further down the line as a healer, right? This is a beautiful way to do that. And so you can literally ask your deck, all I want you to do is just mirror back what's going on with me inside, okay? And then you won't be pulling in spirits and worry about channeling and seeing ghosties, okay? All right, so like I said, it's a beautiful friend to work with to start asking questions. And so let me pull a random card here. Okay, so like this one is the determination card. And so if you pull this card, you can, you know, obviously decipher what spirit is trying to tell you about like determination, but then you can this is where you can start to pull apart the card. So if you're still new to leaning on your intuition and listening to spirit, you can pull apart like what is the significance, like Google, what is the significance in the messaging behind running water? What's the significance in salmon going upstream, right? And so those seem like very general messaging, but what you can do, because when I pull spirit animals for people, right, I don't know every single spirit animal and what they represent. So if I pull one for someone, I'll go on Google and I'll look up the message, and spirit will point me towards the sentences that resonate with that person's energy body. So it works like that for you too. So you may Google, what is the spiritual significance of running water or a waterfall, right? And spirit will push you towards the sentences that are meant for you, that resonate and align with you. So if you're reading like an article and you feel it deep in your soul and you're like, oh, that sounds like it could be representative of me, that piece of it is for you. So you don't always have to go necessarily just by the card as a whole. You can pull things from it. Let me give another example here. Okay, so this one is the Ten of Swords, okay? So you can pull a lot of things right here. You can put, what is the significance of swords? What is the spiritual significance of like a beach that he's on? What's the significance of laying on the ground, right? Dark clouds, like you can pull it apart. if you're having a little bit of a difficult time looking at the picture as a whole, okay? I am not doing cards today. I am explaining how to connect with your decks, like your oracle decks and your tarot decks. Let me drink some water here, if anybody has any questions. And so, let me get another one. Okay, so like this one would be sacrifice. So you could look up the significance of like wearing a headdress, or what is the spiritual significance of wearing feathers in your hair, or holding a butterfly, or just butterflies in general. Like there's a lot of different ways you can pick it apart and then Google and find out what that means for you. And so I find that sometimes people get really stumped on reading for themselves because their logical, analytical mind is trying to like rationalize what the message is, but that's a lot different than like the spiritual side of things. And I tell people, you don't have to lean one way or the other. Like both of those things are true. Like 3D is true and 5D is true, right? It's this and that. Because I'm a very logical and analytical person as well. And so what you can do when you first start is you can ask yourself, what is the logical symbolism here? And then what is a spiritual symbolism? And again, you can Google those things, right? And then you can meet somewhere in the middle, like compare them. Like let's say that you take, hold on. The portal card. So this is portal, doors are opening, you decide, rewards, wild card. So you can take whatever your brain is telling you is the logical messaging and write that down. Like write down whatever comes up from your logical brain, right? And then flip over and ask yourself, like, what do I think the metaphysical, spiritual of this is? And write all those things down. And then the truth for you if you're that type of person that has both energies, is going to be somewhere in the middle. So you can almost do like a Venn diagram. Okay, and overlap one another, and then come somewhere in the middle. Okay. I need to learn how to connect better with my decks. Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to post this on YouTube as well if anybody wants to watch it later. Because the type of healing that I do with people, the services that I offer, are a blend of like psychology and spirituality, like energy healing. Because in my opinion, like both are needed, because we are human beings with like evolutionary like biology, and then we're also like galactic etheric like soul energy beings, and so you really need both. And so I find that there are a lot of people that are like, I can't bring logic into reading cards. You absolutely can. Like, we're human beings, it's totally okay, right? If you do that, even if all of your messages are very logically based, that's just how you function, and that's okay, right? Okay, so when you first get a deck, I highly suggest cleansing it. And you can do that with sage, you can do that with incense, but just like waving it like over the deck and asking the deck to clear out of any energies that it might be holding on to. Because when people are in the store, like in a metaphysical store, there's so many people touching it. And like it absorbs energy. Like your tarot deck and your oracle decks like absorb your energy. Okay. Oh, hey Casey. I'm talking about connecting with your oracle cards and your tarot decks. So they absorb. And so if like hundreds of people are touching this deck, oh, thank you. If hundreds of people are touching this deck, like it's intermingled and intertwined with other people's stuff, so you may not get accurate readings on it. And so get you some incense, get you some sage, right? You can like, a good way to cleanse your deck too, if you don't have those things, you can like knock on it, right? Knocking, like sound clearing. Sound clearing is great as well. Always cleanse before I use mine, and I lay them on a selenite slab. Yes, selenite is great. Thank you, Casey. Selenite. Where is my wand? Okay, it's somewhere. Okay, selenite is great for cleansing and absorbing energies off of things, and selenite charges itself too. It's not one that you have to charge as much as the other crystals, because it's very powerful, very high frequency. So thank you, Casey. That's great. But sound clearing, like I said, that also helps. Also, I would suggest too is cleansing each card like individually. If you're having a hard time connecting with it, it might still be like holding on to people's stuff. So go and take some incense, sage, or like knock on it and do every single one. Okay. So when you're starting to practice with your decks, newbie here, what's the difference between an oracle deck and a tarot deck? Okay. And I'm going to post this on YouTube in case anybody wants to watch. So I talked about that in the beginning. Oracle cards are more based on like pictures and gleaning information from the picture, like whatever your interpretation is, kind of like art. So you know how art, like if you and I went to go look at art together, we're going to have different perceptions based on what that is and our own interpretations. Tarot is a little bit different. I think there's 64 cards generally in all the tarot decks, and sometimes there's some extra ones in there, but they always have the same cards. Like there's always the Three of Cups, there's always the Empress, there's always Wands cards, there's very specific cards, and they have very specific meanings. Oh, 78, thank you. I don't know why I was saying 64. So see, I'm not as privy to like tarot decks. 78, and they all have the same suite, and they all have very specific messaging to each card. Like each one carries a specific energy about it, right? Oracle cards, like I have 5 different oracle decks, and they all have very different vibrations and frequencies to them. And when I pull from people, it lets I gravitate towards whatever that person's like main energy is. Like some people are very earth-based, some people are magical, like whimsical, some people are very galactic, some people are like, there's just a lot of different energies. And so there's more creative freedom in oracle decks. Yes, I agree with you. If you are a very like logically based minded person, right? Tarot is probably going to be better for you to begin with, at least. If you are very much interested in like interpreting your own messages and like very much in your imagination, oracle decks are going to be great for you. Because you can just get what you get from it. Okay. So go through each card. We talked about going and looking on Google. Like Google is a great resource, even for oracle cards. I know it's kind of like open-ended with oracle, like it could mean 1,000 different things. That's why I say if you're getting like stumped, pull the card pieces apart. And I'll go over that one more time. So like this one. This is visualization. So instead of you like obviously visualize, right? But there's deeper meanings to that specifically for you. And so you could look up the spiritual meaning of eyes, right? Or like muddiness, cloudy water. Like there's so many different things that you could pull just from the sparkles. Right? And it doesn't matter what it is necessarily that you're pulling apart from the messaging to look up individually, because spirit will show you the sentences that are meant for you to read and interpret the way you're meant to. Okay. All right. And so another way that you can connect with your deck and like infuse it with your energy, because what we're talking about is not using it to connect with guides and not using it to channel and all of those things. We're talking about solely reading our own energy and using it to help us grow with our intuition. And so what you can do is you can sleep with your deck, like put it in its box and sleep with it under your pillow. Because when you are sleeping, you are in a high vibrational like astral plane, and you are going to infuse your energy with it. And it's near your head space, like your upper 3 chakras, your third eye chakra, your crown chakra, and the other ones up here. It helps you connect with it even more. You can talk to your deck. You can, oracle cards are great for strengthening your intuition. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're like build stories off of it, of your own energy. So sleeping with it is great. Talking to it, you know, it becomes your friend. It's not just like a bunch of cards. Decks are their own consciousness form. Like they hold frequencies and vibrations. Like each singular card is its own being. Okay. And I know if you're first starting to get into tarot and oracle, like that might be a little esoteric, right? It's sounding out there. But once you really get into it, that's the type of relationship that you build with it. Like they start like being living, breathing things. Okay. And so that's like step 2 after you just infuse them with their own energy and you have them reading back to you what's going on in your energy. Okay. So going on trips with them. So I did this in the beginning when I first started working with my decks. Is your decks, like I said, become like your friends. Your friend wants to go places with you, wants to hang out. Okay, so throw it in your, or not throw it, place it in your backpack or your purse or your back pocket, like wherever, and take it places, especially outside in nature. Like very high vibration frequencies, like being out in nature, and it like builds that relationship with it. Or like keep it on car rides with you, like, or keep it near you, like in your room, right? Like pointing your attention at it will help it grow, help you grow together. Okay, so let me get my pendulum, because we're going to talk about pendulums for just a second. So pendulums, some people like using pendulums, some do not, but these are great if you are kind of still trying to work on your intuition. Yes, I will have it up later. Okay, so pendulums, we all have energy currents running through us, right? We're all energy beings. And so this is a great way to hone in your energy into like one place to help you, you know, work with your intuition, make decisions, like teach you how to trust yourself. Okay. So what you're going to do is if you get a pendulum, it doesn't have to look like this. You can even have a necklace, like something that has a heavy piece at the bottom, right? So you definitely want to cleanse your pendulum, because again, people are touching it in the store, right? Like cleanse it. You can do the same things with your pendulum too. You can sleep with this in your pillow. You can carry it in your pocket. You can like hold it in your hand, just like infusing your energy with it. And you want to this is going to become your friend too. Okay, so if you treat it like it's its own consciousness form, it will be. Okay, so what you can do is you can program it. So you can ask, like, if I want a yes, can you go this way? Right? And then if I want to know, can you go this way? Okay, and some people do like circles for their answer, like clockwise, and then some like counterclockwise, all right? And so what you do is you're going to ask it a yes or no question. So you're going to say, like, am I cat? Okay, in this lifetime. I've done that before, and I specify in this lifetime, okay? So it's probably going to say no, right? And then I say, like, is my name Brittany? And it's going to say yes, right? So pendulums are really great for helping you develop your intuition. And in reference to cards, this is a great tool to have to help you pick out tarot and oracle decks. So when I go to like metaphysical stores, sometimes I can hear, but I've been developing mine for a while now, but I can hear a deck calling to me. Like I did not want a tarot deck. Like, it wasn't in my peripheral to get one, but I went to a store one time and I heard this deck and it was calling out to me, and it was saying, like, hey, I want you to take me home, I want to start working with you. And so I was like, okay, and this is one of my favorites. And it was a good lesson too. Like, I don't have to do everything like everybody else. Even though it's a tarot deck, I can still read it oracle, which is really funny because I read them, and 9 times out of 10 what I'm reading oracle wise is what the tarot meaning would be. So it just works out like that. But if you're not necessarily hearing things yet, or you don't want to hear things yet, you can get you a pendulum and take it to the store with you and then hold it over the decks. Like, nobody's going to look at you weird in the metaphysical store. Like, everybody knows what you're doing, okay? So you can, like, hold it over and then ask, like, is this a deck for me? And it will tell you yes or no, okay? And make sure you always, like, thank your pendulum. Like, you really need to be thanking your pendulum. You need to be thanking your cards and your crystals for them working with you. They're like your friends. And it's also a mirror back to you, especially if you're using them to read your own energy and work with your own intuition. That's like you saying thank you to yourself. Okay, it's a good mirror. All right, so practicing with friends. I know sometimes it's very intimidating practicing with other people, especially when it's like in the metaphysical woo realm, right? And so if you don't have anybody that's in your life right now that is on that same wavelength as you, or not interested in those things, there are tons and tons and tons of like tarot and oracle Facebook groups. And people love for you to practice and read them. Like, that is a beautiful way to do that. If you have friends and family members, that's great too, because your energy bodies are already very intertwined with one another. So it's going to be easier for you to read a family member or a friend because you're already so in sync with one another, right? But you can definitely do it with strangers on the internet. I would definitely suggest, though, like getting into a tarot and an oracle deck or a group and asking people there, because they're already on that same wavelength, right? And they can give you like honest feedback on like, yeah, that's accurate, or no, that's not. And you can just start with one card and just ask people, like, is it okay if I read with you? Like, shuffle your deck, pull one card, and just tell them what you get from it. Like, it doesn't have to be this huge big ordeal. Just like, these are the impressions that I got, and then ask them, right? This is more for like working with self though, this chat. So if you are just now starting to work with your own deck, what I suggest you do, like, let's say that you just got your deck, okay? What I would suggest doing is going through each card individually, one every day, and writing down what your impressions of it are. Like this one, portal, you write down whatever comes to your mind. You don't have, it doesn't have to be like this huge ordeal where you're trying to decipher like this big giant map, right? It could literally be like, doors are new possibilities. That's it, okay? Thank your card. You can keep it, you know, separate if you want, and then pull the next one. So this is the called card. That's another portal. Let's pull a different one. This is Child of the Cosmos, right? So like from this, you could say like my soul is awakening. Like I'm getting more aligned with my soul purpose, right? Write that down and just go through the whole entire deck. And once you're through the whole deck, if you start it over again, you're going to get completely different messages. Like completely different messages, because now your energy is intertwined and intermingled, intermeshed into it. And your reading level goes up. Like, you know, like when a preschooler level 1, level 2, level 3, like it does that too. Okay. So go through your whole deck, even if it's just one a day. When I get my decks, I do it a little bit different because I've been doing it for a while. So if I were going to get one, I would go out in nature, like somewhere where it's quiet and I can kind of zone in, and I will go through each card there. I won't try and interpret. I won't try and do anything. I will just like literally look at the card and see the impression that I get, and then go to the next and go through the whole entire deck in one sitting and let my energy infuse and just absorb that card's or the deck's energy. Because the way that I work with them is I, you know, give readings to people. And so now I've pulled it's not just me reading for myself, it's like me reading for other people. So now my decks are different consciousness forms. They're not just representative of me. And so I work with mine a little bit different. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. This is the first time that I've done a live on like teaching oracle cards and live. So, or teaching oracle cards and tarot. It's a very like personal thing sometimes. Like everybody reads decks differently, and that's totally okay. Like if you're on your journey of reading, it doesn't have to look like how other people do it. Like the way I do Reiki, the way I do Akashic Records, like it's way different from other people, and that's okay. We're all meant to be doing our things in our own way, because if everything was the same, that'd be very boring. Okay, so does anybody have any questions so far? I think that I covered everything. I just wanted to come on and do like a quick tutorial. I do have a question, since I do read tarot. What does the Tower card represent to you? Okay. So the Tower card to me, I think it depends like contextually with people, because if I'm reading for other people, like it's going to change based on what their energy is. For me personally, I think that the Tower card is representative of being in the void space. And the void space is when things are falling out of resonance and falling out of frequency with you, and it seems like it's very negative because it's like crumbling down. But on the other side of Tower moments in the void space are better things for you, things that are in alignment with your soul. And so like it looks sometimes like a negative card, but it can be a very positive card. Like the Death card. One of my friends asked me like, what do I think about the Death card? And it was on the portal yesterday. And I said, well, because it's in conjunction with the portal, that is a rebirth card. It's like we have to pull down and destroy the old that's no longer working, no longer serving us, so that we can bring in the new. Okay? Gotcha, yes, because I've been getting this card like every day. I pull a couple cards, so I wanted to see another interpretation. Yeah. What interpretation were you getting from the card? I would love to hear that. But I typically see it as a positive, even though it seems like a negative. Like you're falling off the tower. And it could be different things too, though. Like that could be that maybe you're not in alignment with things in your life and you need to make an adjustment. Otherwise, like it's going to create a lot of chaos in your life. If anybody is interested in more resources about trusting your intuition and working with your intuition, if you go up into my bio, in my link, I have a spiritual and mental empowerment group. It's a free Facebook group, and I'm going to be posting 2 YouTube videos, not from me, but from other people, from resources that I learned when I first started on my journey, like I saved them, and a podcast. And I'm going to post them up there in just a minute for everybody in case anybody wants to watch those. So I didn't know if that means chaos is coming or what. Typically, like the Tower moment means you're in the chaos. Like the Tower card. Typically, like I said, it's contextual based off of your energy. But typically, like generally speaking, it means you're in it. All right, and then you're like headed towards coming out of it. Okay. The Hermit card usually goes right in tandem with the Tower card, because what happens when we're in the void space in the Tower moments, everything like crumbles around us and falls out of frequency and resonance, and then we go in Hermit mode. That is where we recalibrate who we are as a person and what we want in life. And so we kind of like pull away from people and like social things, because we just need to get it together, like get ourselves together, because we're going to have new stuff coming in. And to resonate with the new stuff, like we have to be on that same frequency and that same vibration. So we hermit. Okay. And then you have, what would be representative of like coming up out of that? Any of the cups, like the cups are very representative of abundance and prosperity. You said, so chaotic in my little shell. Well, that's great though, because, and not great for you, but that's great because you're going to be coming out of it soon, right? And once you've had a couple Tower moments, because it's a cycle. Once you've had a couple Tower moments, then you can start to recognize when you're in the Tower moment, and it's a little bit easier and to come out, because you're like, oh, I've been in this before. Like, it always means that new things are coming, right? Better things. And so you just like go along for the ride. I've been getting the Empress, Magician, and Temperance. I love the Empress and the Magician card. I don't know a lot about the Temperance card. I don't pull that one a lot. But the Empress and Magician, they're awesome. And the Empress, and fun tip that I heard on TikTok was some people have a difficult time differentiating between the Empress and the High Priestess. And so here, let me see if I can find them really quick. So somebody said that the High Priestess card is more like etherical vibrations, like up in the ethers, right? And that the Empress is grounded energy, like earth energy, like ancestral. So let me see if I can find that, if anybody has any more questions. Wow, Tower moments are as small as getting frustrated at the garage in my yard. Yeah, they doesn't have to be like this huge, big thing for a Tower moment. Like, Tower moments are relative to you, like in what you have going on in your life, okay? Oh, here's my Tower card. Hold on. This is the Tower card. So you see, it looks really like disconcerting when you look at it. But like, this means that like you were up here in life with things that weren't serving you, like not vibing with you, and now you're out of that vibration and frequency, and so you're recalibrating right now. Okay, you said the slightest inconvenience and you think the world is ending. That's right. Like, it's just relative to you. He's just throwing his spider web. Okay, let me see if I can find these two cards, because I want to show everybody if you can feel like the energetic difference. Okay, there's the High Priestess. Where did I put? I had my Empress card. There we go. Okay, so this is the High Priestess and the Empress. So if you can look at these two cards, they have very different energies about them. Very ethereal, very earthly based. And that's not to say one's necessarily better than the other. Some people just have more earthly energy and some people have more etheric energy. Yeah, yin and yang. That's a beautiful way to put it. Yes. Yin yang twins. Okay. So like I said, if anybody wants to have those resources about intuition, go what's the word I'm trying to think of? Add yourself into my Facebook group. There's a link in my bio. It says mental and spiritual empowerment, and I post resources all the time, and there are like tons of resources about like all things like working with your subconscious, working, you know, with spirit guides, just lots of different things. And then my friend Ray and I are going to be opening a spiritual school soon. And so we're going to be teaching people like how to work with your chakras and how to do shadow work and work with your intuition and work with oracle cards and tarot cards and like just all the things that Ray and I had to spend hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours researching for ourselves. And so we said, let's create a space to give people that information, so maybe it saves them time and energy. Because when I started my journey, like I said, I read like hundreds of like articles and videos and podcasts, and I actually put together a list for our school, and it was like 8 pages long of things that I've saved over the past like 2-3 years. Oh, thank you, Erin. I appreciate that very much. I do readings. I do Reiki. They're a mix of energy healing and therapy. So mine are a little bit different than some other of the Reiki that you see, because I utilize psychology and energy healing. And then I do Akashic record readings, and that's where we get like real in depth into like karmic cycles and behavioral patterns and like past lives and things of that nature. And then I do past version soul retrievals. And so that is where you have, when we experience like traumatic things, our pieces of us splinter off like past versions, and they get caught in energetic timestamps, and you got to go back in and release them from those timestamps because they're pushing forward behavioral patterns and triggers like in the present now. That's why sometimes we're like, I don't understand why I keep repeating this thing like over and over and over again, or bringing these same people or experiences into my life. It's because it's them back there, like 8-year-old us, 15-year-old us, 25-year-old us, that are pushing forward stuff that isn't in alignment with who we are now. And so we got to go back in and help them heal and counsel them and say, hey, we're not on that vibe anymore, okay? And we love them. We love them because they have done all this very difficult work for us and went through a lot of trauma. And so we need to honor them, ask their forgiveness for us talking negatively to them sometimes, and like hold them in a very loving space container for them to release. Okay. So if anybody's interested in any of those, there's a link in my bio as well. But if you are interested in the spiritual school, in learning about all these things, there is a link in my bio to subscribe, and we're going to start sending out emails to keep everybody updated, and we're going to start a Facebook page here this weekend. So I'm going to post this up on YouTube, and if anybody has questions about the things that I was talking about or need like a little more clarity, like feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's Soulharmonyhealing. You can just shoot me a message or send me a message. I'm trying to change my languaging. Send me a message and say, hey, this is what you said. Can you help me out a little bit? And I will help you where I can or point you in a direction. Okay. All right, my lovelies. I will see you next time, and I hope everybody has a wonderful, magical day.